All right, good afternoon, everyone. 12 o'clock, let's get started. How you folks are doing? Great. Yeah, and it's TGIF, so last day of the week, and we have a weekend ahead of us. I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for asking. Yeah, and so yeah, it's Happy Friday indeed. So one other, if I don't know if you had a chance to look at your emails, but something that we talked about in the last couple lectures, and that is kind of moving all the questions into the Q&A to make it easier to manage questions that are asked during lectures. So now we have this Q&A panel, and we currently have two questions asked and answered there. They are actually real questions that were asked in the last lecture and that I couldn't answer right away. One was about the total value that ls prints. So if you do ls-al, it prints closer to the top of the output, prints something like total 272. So that number is actually the number of blocks occupied by the files in the directory. So I put the answer there, and the command info you could have used, and of course I didn't know that at the time. So you could have used to verify, as a proof of what I'm telling you. So if you ran this command info core utils ls invocation, then it would give you the information about the invocation of ls command, which would include this paragraph that I quoted here. And for the second question, so I made a mistake last lecture. So I said ls was a built-in command, and someone corrected me saying that, well, but then why there is an ls executable in the bin directory. And that was exactly the right thing to notice. So yes, ls is not a built-in command, so I was wrong on this. Sorry about that. So that kind of brings up the question of what are built-in commands, at least in Bash, which is the shell that I'm using. And here are at least three different ways of checking what exactly built-in commands are. So one, you can follow that link and look up the documentation on the web. You could then run man built-ins in your Unix terminal, and it will show you the same man page. And you could have done also compgen with a -b flag and look at the list of built-in commands that way. Okay, so hopefully we are clear on that. And so in my email from from a little while ago, we are introducing the new feature to this course. So we will be given extra credit for students who are actively engaged in the course, who are helping other students. And it goes two ways. One way to get this extra credit would be by serving as panelists and answering questions on the Q&A, and that's why we now have all the questions in Q&A. So we still keep chat open, but if you want your question to be answered guaranteed, then you should really put it in the Q&A, because chat scrolls so fast. It's at times it's almost impossible to keep track of all the conversations going on there. At least I'm not able to keep up with it. With close to 200, maybe even more participants, it is very difficult. So that's why we are separating. Chat is for any thoughts, any communications. It's Wild West. You can do whatever you want in the chat. I mean, as long as it is legal and doesn't violate any of the RPI policies, I'm fine with it. And for questions that you want to be answered, or like you noticed I made a mistake in the lecture and I didn't say something right, that would be, and you want someone to respond to that, that's something that is best suited for a Q&A. So Q&A, we will have panelists who will be answering the questions that they can. And of course, I don't expect them to answer absolutely all questions, but if there is a question that is not being answered, for some time, then it's perfectly fine for one of the panelists to unmute themselves and kind of serve that question to me or remind me to answer that question so that I could answer it. Right? I will try to keep an eye on Q&A as well, but if I don't, hopefully, so panelists will remind me to deal with that question. And of course, I might not be able to answer all questions either, but we will save Q&A at the end of each lecture, and then I will try to follow up with a question that I couldn't answer during the lecture because I either didn't have enough time or I just didn't know the answer. Right? I'm sure I don't know answers to many questions, so I will need to look up those answers for you and point you to the right resources or just give you the answer. So I will follow up in the next lecture or on Submiti forum with the answer if I'm not able to answer it in real time. I know a few people volunteered to serve as panelists today, and we had more people than we thought we need for any given lecture. So it's hard for us to predict the demand and how many panelists we need exactly for each lecture. So we decided to start with 3 panelists and then see how it goes. Do those, are those panelists bored and, sitting there doing nothing, or are they so overwhelmed with questions and they're answering and they're just, just doing nothing else but answering and missing on the lecture? Then, of course, it's not good. We would need to increase the number of panelists per lecture. And one of the things that I would ask panelists to do, and we are supposed to have 3 panelists already on this call. Is that the case? Do we have all 3 people? They were supposed to get the email, I think, yesterday from Cheyenne. Can people who were randomly chosen to be panelists today, are these people here? There should be 3. All right, 1 is here. 2 out of 3 at least. Okay, and it doesn't look like the 3rd person is here. So let me then check my notes. Okay. Yeah, I don't think that 3rd person is here. So let me replace it with another person who also volunteered. Let me just make sure I find someone who is actually here. Oh, that person is not here. Oh, so this person is here. They also volunteered. So I'm making you a co-host. All right, Henry, did Webex tell you anything about the fact that you're now a co-host? Okay, cool. So we have 3 people at least for today, and yeah, if I'm answering one of the questions on their Q&A, all right, I clearly don't have time to type it, so I will answer just by voice, and then one of the panelists should kind of transcribe this into text and put it as an answer in the Q&A. So let's try this. Is there a lecture limit for being a panelist? Currently, no, because we don't really know what the demand is going to be, and we're just trying to start with something, and then uh, tune the parameters, right? Tune the number of panelists per lecture. Tune if we have to kind of force people to rotate, because otherwise just a few people would take over the whole the whole panelist thing. So we're just trying to see what how everything is working. Okay, and of course, please let us know what you think, how everything is working, and what changes we need to to make moving forward. I was wondering if panelists have a lecture limit, like you can only be a panelist 3 times. Yeah, so I think I answered that. Currently, no, but we might have to introduce this if there are many people who want to be panelists, and we don't want just 2 or 3 people to kind of take over the whole thing. All right, we want everyone who wants to participate. We want them to be able to participate. So DS panelists didn't get any extra credit. It was just volunteering. All right. Well, we do give extra credit. For being a panelist, it is 0.25 percentage points per lecture. And yeah, so that's it. Okay. Yeah, and so like if you served as a panelist for lectures, you earned 1% of your overall grade. Extra credit, high demand. Okay, yeah, well, that's good. We want people to be active. When are exam grades going to be released? So we are currently about halfway done with grading the exam. So they're not going to be released today or tonight. I apologize for that, but they are actively grading. So hopefully we make significant progress over the weekend, and I'm really hoping for Monday or Tuesday at the latest. Again, sorry for the delay, but don't worry. Everything is looking pretty good actually. So I think the current, and we only halfway done, and I think we practically didn't start grading problem 4, which is their harder problem. And many of you said that for them it was actually the hardest problem. But of their, the amount of grading we have done, I think the current running average is like 80% or close to 80%. So I think it's looking, yeah. So it will probably go down because of problem 4, but hopefully not by much. So I think everything is looking pretty good. I think there should be a limit or rotation so everyone has a chance. Okay, yeah, we will we will look at the sign up sheet, and if it's just 3 people who were quick enough to kind of sign them up for all the lectures, yeah, we will do something about it, definitely. And yeah, so I'm not going to look at it now, just not to waste the time, but we will definitely look at that with Cheyenne after the lecture, and decide how we can make this fair, of course, to all students who want to participate. Sign up names and randomly book for all people who want to be panelists. Yeah, that's definitely one of the options, one of the ways to deal with it. All right. Yeah. So, and yeah, one person filled for all lectures. Yeah, I haven't looked at the sign-up sheet. Yeah, or 2 people. Yeah, if that is the case, and I can understand where people are coming from. So if you think about, how many lectures do we have left? I think over 20, right? So 20 lectures times, quarter of a percentage point. So it's what, 5 percentage points. Extra credit. So I think it's 5%. Yeah, I think it's pretty attractive. And really the only requirement is that panelists do show up, and they they work on questions together. So that they're actually working with as panelists, and that's it, right? So yeah, so I think it's a low hanging fruit, and yeah, hopefully we can make it attractive. Yeah, and on top of that, so the other part of the participation incentive is people who are active answering, helping other students on Submiti Forum will also get, also have a chance to get up to percentage points extra credit for the same kind of participation thing, but it's going to be from submittee. So the way I think we decided to make it work is that, and I know some of you are already active on the forum and helping other students. So, I'm noticing that, and rest assured, it is appreciated. But now we want this appreciation to take some tangible form, right? To be something material, and people who are helping others on the forum, students who are helping others on the forum. Around their half semester mark, so roughly after 7 weeks of their semester, we will run a submini poll asking all students, the entire class, to tell us who the most helpful students were on the forum. So I will just pull their data from the submini forum, basically just looking at the number of posts each student made, and then kind of filtering to make sure that I'm only looking at their questions answered, not questions asked or problems reported. And then we will, probably select, like, well, depending on how many active students we're going to see on the forum. So we will grab those names, put them in the submini poll, and then let everyone in the class vote. Who they think their most helpful students, other students, peers were on the forum, and then based on that, we will award 1 percentage point extra credit. Right, one because it's for the first half of the semester, and then we'll do the same thing for the second half of the semester, so that if someone is active the whole semester, they can get 2 points extra credit. And if someone was active in the first half but not so active in the second, or vice versa, at least they can get 1 point. Okay, yeah, and someone is saying, I suggest to sign up for anyone wanting to be a panelist, then they get dates assigned randomly and evenly. Yeah, so I will definitely save the chat, and I will share it with Cheyenne, our instructional support coordinator, who is in charge of all scheduling, logistics, organizing, and keeping track of everything for us. Yeah, she will, yeah, because I don't know much about their tool that she is using. She is using the this sign up website. So I will ask her to see what can be done with considering all the suggestions that you are folks putting in the chat right now. Okay, so that will be analyzed, and of course we will keep you posted about how everything goes. All right, so that's those are our extra credit participation incentives. Hopefully you like them. If if you don't like them, let us know. If you think they need to be changed, let us know as well. We are open to suggestions. And I missed the first 5 minutes. Do we announce it in the chat if you want to be? Okay. Yeah. If someone could answer. Yeah. Thank you. All right. And that was regarding our exam one grading. We already talked about, and our participation incentive we already talked about. So yeah, this participation thing, it can be what, up to 7% of your overall grade extra, right? So of course it's completely optional and it's extra credit. So if you grab your 5% from being a panelist, and then 2% from being active on the forum, and being helpful as voted by other students, right? So it's not going to be my decision or any of their teaching staff decision, right? It's going to be just the vote of the people, the vote of all the students, and yeah, and of course you can vote for yourself. I guess it's a loophole, but I don't think it's going to affect their outcome too much. Yeah, 7% exactly. 7 labs over the entire exam. Yeah, you got that absolutely right. So yeah, and if the demand is high for people who want to be panelists, of course we might have to rotate people. So probably any given student would not have a chance to serve as a panelist for all all 20 lectures, but we shall see how it goes. Does helping on other platforms, Discord, count? Uh, Well, there, I'm open to counting it on other platforms. The only thing is that with submitted forum, I can grab all the posts from like their submitted database, and I can easily get their list of people who should be included in the vote, right? In this poll. For students to vote for them being the most helpful, right? With Discord, I don't have any experience, grabbing any posts or just doing anything like that. So if someone is willing to help me with that, or which basically means if someone is willing to volunteer to do this kind of data scraping from Discord, then yeah, sure, I think we could do Discord as well. Okay, and yeah, so I'm thinking it might be hard to track, but like I said, if someone comes up with a good solution, I'm certainly open to use it. All right, homework 2 will be posted tomorrow. So yeah, please stay tuned. It's yeah, so I actually I'm actually still working on it, and yeah, so I don't want to give you any kind of heads up because I might still change stuff. Okay, so yeah, I see there's discussion about the Discord thing going on. Yeah, please feel free to come up with a good solution, but yeah, it has to be it has to be protected from cheating or abuse. Hopefully. And yeah, so for the Q&A, back to the Q&A thing again, other students, please make sure that you ask questions, right? Because if we see that, oh, in this lecture there were only 5 questions asked, and then clearly it doesn't look like even three panelists is it would like even 3 panelists is too many, right? So we have to have enough questions so that we each panelist gets at least a couple of questions in to answer every lecture, because if a panelist didn't answer any single question in a lecture and they do that repeatedly, that might mean that they're not really active enough in their role as a panelist. Okay, so and yeah, exactly. So someone made a very a very good observation. More questions, well, not in chat, in Q&A. More panelists, more people that get extra credit. That's exactly true. I'm still hoping that people would not abuse this this incentive and by asking absolutely meaningless questions or trivial questions just to serve questions to the panelists and help them earn points. So hopefully we and I don't want to do any kind of policing, but hopefully we have an understanding, all of us, that it is an incentive to help students get answers to their questions faster and easier, and provide some incentive for students who are willing to help. They're an additional motivation for doing so, right? So yeah, extra points are fine, but the overall goal, please, especially if you're a panelist, the real goal is just to make this class active and keep people engaged and keep people coming into the lectures. Because lectures are on Webex, so it's very, it's very uh, uh, very uh, what is the look what is the word I'm looking for? It's very enticing to skip the lecture and say, "Hey, I just going to read the slides or something," right? So, but we do want people to come to lectures, to actually get people talking to each other in chat and just have this hopefully lively conversations. All right. So next thing on our agenda. Yeah, I have this question for all of you. What special day is today? Does anyone know what is special about today? RPI students are too smart to not find. Oh, okay, it's Friday. That's good. Constitution Day. Exactly. And for that reason, we have three, I believe. Let me check how many I actually put together. We have three polls, our submini polls on U.S. Constitution, and I'm opening them right now. So yeah, please go ahead and answer those polls. And yeah, they actually have correct answers. So you have to know stuff. And of course, if you don't know, it's fine if you look it up. Okay, so we are pretty, on these we are pretty flexible, right? If you don't know the answer and you look it up, hopefully you would remember the answer, and so it still counts. Okay, and then polls from last lecture. Let's go over them, and for that I need to start sharing something, I would imagine. All right, and now I need chat as well. Okay, and we had lecture 4, poll 1. Which of these is an absolute path? And I believe the correct answers were, well, this one, of course, right, because it starts with a slash. So that was correct. And actually, this path is also an absolute path, because remember we talked about this tilde and this wavy thing character, and we mentioned that it's a character that gets expanded by the shell, but it stands for slash home and then slash and then your username. So after expansion, it actually corresponds to an absolute path. Okay, so those were two absolute paths, and to that matter, and we're going to talk more about this today. So if you do something like echo tilde, right, it will, so echo is a command to print something, or echo on the terminal. That's where the name echo is coming from. So you see how it works. It tells what this tilde expands to by the shell. Similarly, I'm sure you've encountered this star before. It's also a character, a special character, a pattern that gets expanded by the shell, and star stands for all files in all files. So echo star is all files in the current directory. So that said, not all expansion characters are equal. Some of them can be pretty pretty tricky. So for example, if you have tilde, it works as we've seen before. If you have something like that, right, or really any character in front of tilde, then tilde is no longer expanded. Tilde is just a regular character that is, as you can see, echoed as is. Whereas if you try something like something like this, all right, where star is not the first character in the string, it's okay. It still gets expanded, and you can see the list of all files in my 2500 directory. All right, so that's about their home directory and tilde, and we need to go back to our second poll, which was this, and here we had their permissions and minimum permissions that you need to see the file with ls test, and so their majority of vote is for this. So yes, and I agree. We only need the read permission on the directory to see the files in that directory, right? So remember, read permission on the directory allows you to list the files in that directory. This is exactly what we want. We don't need to uh, to have the permission to enter that directory, to cd into that directory, right? That would be the X permission, right? So, yeah, we don't need X, right? If we have R index, it would work, but it's not the minimum set of permissions. And clearly, we do not need the right permission to just see which files are in that directory. So that was the correct answer. And poll number 3, what was it? And here, yeah, it was just a survey, so all options were correct. And yeah, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people are using Ubuntu. A few folks with Mac OS, quite a few with WSL, and yeah, some people haven't set up a Unix environment. 2 people at the time. Hopefully, they have had a chance. They did have a chance to set up Unix now, all right, because we definitely need that to practice in this course. One person said other. All right, so I'm just curious what other distro that person is using. If that person could put the name of the distro they're using in the chat, that would be great. I think I kind of try to capture all the most popular ones, but apparently I missed something, so I'd like to know what. Yeah, quite a few distros are not very popular with our students. Yeah, so Slackware. No one is using it anymore, right? It used to be very popular. I used to use Slackware a lot. Okay, yeah, Ubuntu through WSL. Yeah, it's pretty much, yeah, we not really going, yeah, not really fussy about the, the exact classification. Yeah, Arch guy. I think that there are 3 Arch guys or gals. Yeah, 3 Arch people. All right. All right. So those were the polls from last time, and today hopefully we can run all 6 polls, right? If I stop digressing and concentrate on the material that we need to cover today. All right, and the first 3 of those polls are already open. And with that, let me check my plan for today. Yeah, so I think we are good to go with our slides. Unless there are any other questions on the stuff that we have been discussing so far. If not, all right, let's do our. And I think we stopped at 124-ish. Yeah, I think we stopped right here. All right, so my slides are up. Yeah, killing jobs. Yeah, well, kill is historically a word that is used a lot in Unix. So we will also look at killing processes, killing jobs. Yeah. Okay, shells. Basically, shell is a program that you interact with when you open the terminal. So it's the software that takes the commands that you're typing and interprets them. That's why shell is also known as a Unix command interpreter. It takes your input and tries to see if it's a built-in command. Then it is executed internally by the shell. So an example of a built-in command is a cd, change directory, right? And we already mentioned that ls is not a built-in, so it's an external program. So if you type ls, shell checks if this command corresponds to a built-in command. If not, then it will try to find the external command with that name to run it. Shell typically allows you to edit the command line. Hopefully all of you know their tab completion thing, but let me just show it to you because it's a lifesaver. It's very convenient. So suppose I want to change into some directory, and tab completion works in all cases, right? In all standard Unix shells, and of course, at least when you are connected directly to the terminal. When it's over SSH or some remote access, things might be weird, but if you're directly connected, it should work. So imagine you don't want to type the whole long name, so you can just start typing the few characters or the first character, and then I'm pressing tab. Of course, you cannot see that, but I'm pressing tab, and shell suggests what I want to type, what I might want to type next. All right, it suggests the things that start with M, and if there's only one thing that is left that matches what I currently have. What I have currently typed, it will just complete the whole thing. So I can do, SF, and then I press tab, it completes the whole thing, right? 2500, and that's like that. If there are too many options that match in directories with many files, you might see that. The shell will ask you, do you want to really look at all, 2500 alternatives or not? And it will tell you the exact number, of course. All right, that's tab completion. When you're typing commands, they are not just executed. If you do arrow up, arrow down, you can go through the history of your commands like that. So I'm pressing arrow up and then arrow down. So that's something that you can use to invoke commands that were used recently. It's very convenient. You can also do Control R to search through the list of commands. It's a reverse search because it searches from the most recent command. So for example, I was probably building some gradables on Submiti, and I know their command is called build something with a capital B, but I don't remember the exact command, and I just want to execute. I just want to bring up that command so that I can execute it directly without changes, or maybe I want to edit it. So I press Control R, and now I'm pressing capital B. And I see that the first thing that matches is not the, it has a capital B, but it's not the one that I'm looking for. So I press Control R again and Control R again, and nothing comes up. Maybe that command was, that command was actually in the Submiti. So I was logged into the Submiti, so it was not run locally. There's another command that I'm using to build rainbow grades, for example. This is the command called make, and you see how I typed make, and it helped me to bring up the command that I used. Make push was the last make command that I used. So please use Control R. It's extremely convenient. For homework one grades, yeah, and that this is a question, so it's actually a good candidate for the Q&A, so that it remains kind of pinned in the Q&A. So uh, yeah, we are halfway through the exams, but for homework grading, we haven't even started, right? We first want to get you their exams, and then we start grading homework. Homework should be very fast to grade. There's very little manual grading there, so it will be very fast, right? But probably the ETA would be towards their middle of next week, maybe even Thursday, Friday. But I have to check with our TAs, what is realistic. Okay. All right, that's Control R. And then another thing that is very useful is history command. It's a long word, so I use tab completion. I type hist and then I press tab, and here is the history. So it gives you the list of all commands in that shell. It is saved in a special file, and we will see what that file is. But history is extremely convenient because it allows you to see all the commands which your shell conveniently saves for you. So that's very cool. And then the question is, what if I want to execute one of those commands? What do I do, right? Well, you can do this, just copy and paste. But this is low tech, right? We want to be cool. So the cool way is to use this number. Uh, uh, for this command, right? So you see that all commands in the history are numbered. So I want to do 2129. Oops, and it's exclamation and then the command, right? Here it is, right? So you can quickly run any of the command from your history, no matter how far it is, by just doing exclamation and then the command number. All right, that's shell. Very cool, very cool stuff. And of course, you can edit the command. So with the shell, you have your keyboard, which you use to provide input to different programs and commands and whatnot, and you have your screen that is used as the output. There's also a special source of output that is called standard error, stderr, standard error. Did you folks cover std in, std out, and std error in data structures at all? Okay, cool. So then you're familiar with all that stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, right? So standard input, standard output, standard error, and there. When you run your program, each program gets those streams, right, or those I/O channels at its disposal, and it works in C the same way it works in C++, right? So you have your std in, std out, and std error, err, right? So here they are. These two these three standard I/O channels, right? In C, we don't call them streams because there are no streams, right? Stream is something that that is defined within C++ library, so it's not really a concept that we use in plain old C, right? So we just call them, I/O channels, or what they actually are. They're special files. So you can call them files because internally they are handled very similarly to just any other file through their file handle, through the file handler that you just don't need to open because those files are open for you, from the very beginning of your program. So you don't have to worry about opening those files. All right, so std in, that's their input from the keyboard. Std out, that's what your program prints, for example, with printf. Standard error is similar to std out, but it is reserved for their messages about different errors. And with keyboard, it's clear. There's one device keyboard, and there's one input file std_in, the special input file std_in. So it's clear. With the output, it's not clear. Like, well, if my std_out goes to their terminal window, where does std_error go? And it actually goes to the same terminal, but still it goes through its special file std_error. So as far as your program is concerned, std_out and std_error are two different files. And it doesn't matter that by default, they both dump their contents into the same screen, into the same terminal window, right? You can keep them separate, and in many cases, it's a good idea to keep them separate. For example, on submidi, we keep them separate so that we can, look separately at what your program outputs with printf and that kind of stuff, the std_out, and what your program may print if it got a seg fault, or if it was posted, if it was yeah, I'm just reading. Yeah, someone found out the source that I used. All right, well, at least look at their yeah, look at those fascinating facts, right? At least you learned something. So about Constitution that you yeah, haven't looked at before. Okay. Well, did you really expect me to make those questions, from my own head, without looking at any sources? Probably not. No, I'm not that good. I'm not that I'm not that good in history. So yeah, sorry, folks, if yeah, if I didn't meet your expectations, but I can only do so much. All right. So yeah, and on submidi, if your program like crashes with segfault or something, or produces some errors, then we want those to be separate, and we capture them separately from your std_error. So please do not assume std_error and std_out are the same, because they're not, even if they might be output to the same physical terminal. All right, so most Unix commands programs read something from standard input and then print something to std_out, and then if there are any errors, they put error messages in std_error. Right, so and just for clarity, we're talking about command. We are talking about programs that use text-based interface, right? So command line interface or any other text-based interface commands, right? So if GUI GUI programs, of course, do not follow this this protocol, although even GUI programs might have those standard files std and std_out and std_error attached to them, but a user would typically not see those, right? So if you have a GUI app and it printfs something, then the user might actually never see that, because there's no terminal associated with the GUI program. So yeah, so those standard standard files, standard I/O files, are not used that much with GUI programs. It's fine. Don't worry. Don't feel bad. So yeah, like I said, for their Constitution polls, it was more to entertain you and draw attention to the U.S. Constitution rather than really checking your knowledge. Because honestly, I wouldn't be able to answer those questions correctly myself, without looking up. So all right, and yeah, so those are defaults we already talked about. Input is keyboard, and then output is your terminal screen, right? Which is the same for output and error, because we only have one screen. So when you are, as a user, entering the values that a program asks you for, right? So if you're using keyboard to supply values for std_in, how do you indicate that you're done with your input and let the program know that it can proceed? Well, it depends on the program, and you have done this in the first homework, right? So if your program knows that the user needs to enter just two values, it can read those two values, and once it has done that, it knows that it can proceed. So like let's say those names are those values that the user enters are names of the files. However, if the program doesn't know in advance how many values, what is the amount of input that it should expect from the user, then it will be expecting more and more input, and we gotta have some way of telling when the user is done, and that way of telling is Control D. So it basically acts as the end of the input stream. It's very similar to the end of file. So imagine your program is reading stuff from the file, and when it reaches the end of file, it knows that there will be no more input. So it's the same. It's the same kind of analogy for reading input from the keyboard, right? So if the user entered Control D, then it signals the program that that's the end of the input, and the program, may continue with with the rest of the algorithm, with the rest of the algorithm, with the rest of the algorithm. Yeah, it's definitely Friday. All right, so. Here are some popular shells, some well-known shells. Of course, this list is not exhaustive. And yeah, so if you are on Ubuntu, most likely you're using Bash. Okay, and I think we next have our pop quiz. Yeah, so let me open that pop quiz, and I believe it's this one, number 4. All right, let me check it. Yep, that's the one. Yeah, and this is just asking what the shell you use on on your Linux or Unix flavor, right? So please make sure you answer this correctly, right? Because you need to check. If you're not sure, please check which shell you are using. Okay, and we are back. And just all right, let me briefly look at the chat. Is there anything that I should respond to? Yeah, there is a fish shell. Okay. Yeah, we have a couple folks who are Submiti developers, and if you are interested in joining them, please do. Yeah, Submiti is a great tool, but it is being actively developed, and occasionally it gets broken. We need more testing on Submiti, and we need more developers to promptly fix all those bugs and introduce new features so that Submiti is even better than before. Is there a different print statement I can use? I think yeah, I think it's actually a question. So another something that would be I think more suited for Q&A. With to print to std error instead of std out, you just need to use the function that takes that takes a file and then specify that you are that you want to write to std error instead of std out, and to print everything before the seg fault. I think you mean like the stack trace, like their contents of the stack, and yes, it is possible. I don't have an example, at my fingertips right now, but I can certainly come up with with an example. But please make sure you put this in the Q&A so that your question doesn't fall through the cracks. All right, it's another great question. How do I know which shell I'm using? So yeah. So, and people are suggesting. So as you probably got their, the vibe. You caught. Hopefully, you caught the vibe of Unix and Linux operating systems. Like they're all over the place, and there are so many of them. And for any single action, no matter how trivial, there'll probably be a gazillion of different ways to accomplishing this task. And honestly, this is one of the things I like the most about Nix systems, right? So yeah, echo a $0 and ps-p. So try all those methods, and if you Google, you might find even more methods. Again, for those pop quiz questions, their main objective is, well, it's a participation tool, right? So we want people to actually join this lecture synchronously and participate. And if you don't know the answer, just Google Google not the answer, right? But Google their how to solve this problem, right? Do not Google which shell do I use, right? Google how do I find out the shell on my Linux distro, right? And then that's the whole idea, right? And then run it on your machine, and find out, right? And then select the answer. Okay, so that's this pop quiz. So many Bash users. Yeah, well, because so many Ubuntu users, right? We saw in the previous slide that quite a few people are using Ubuntu, including myself. So these days, like I said, I used to use Red Hat very long time ago, and then for the longest time I used Slackware, and then I kind of went back to Red Hat when I had an internship at IBM, and IBM internally used exclusively Red Hat, nothing else but Red Hat. And that was for a reason, because eventually IBM bought Red Hat. Yeah. All right. Each shell supports some customization, actually quite a lot of things you can customize. User prompt, and we talked about the user prompt is that string that shell prints, inviting you to enter your command, where to find mail, where all the different shortcuts, and stuff like that. And a lot of this customization configuration information is in startup files. So startup files are special files. That's why their names start typically with a dot, right? They are typically directly under your home directory, and of course the location and the specific names of those files are all over the place. It's going to be different for different shells. Some shells have global or system defaults. Then, of course, those would be not under their particular user home directory. Those would be in some global location like etc. So etc is the standard location for configuration files. All their Unix, Linux systems that I can think of, use etc. Maybe there are some exceptions that I just don't remember, but etc is pretty standard. /etc is is where all configuration information, not just for the shell, but for all the programs. If you install any of the servers like Apache, MySQL, whatever, then the configuration file will go into this etc. Right. So in Unix there is no such a thing as registry. Microsoft Windows relies on registry, this central database with all configuration information about different programs, and it's actually well, it's registry has been around for a while, but first earlier versions of Windows did not have registry, right? And it was a hell, right? Because the configuration files were all over the place. All different programs would store them in different locations. There were conflicts, and it was just terrible. And then Windows switched to using this centralized database for all configuration information, and called registry. And registry is a database, so you cannot or programs cannot edit the files directly. So you are supposed, or the program, right? Well, they're originally not supposed to be edited by humans, although you can using the regedit tool, right? But even programmatically, you cannot, or you should not try to edit files directly. You should go through the API, and if you want to edit registry, you have to go through this regedit tool, right? Because it's a database, and you have to go through this user interface to edit anything in the database. And that is an inconvenience, and on the other hand, it allows the operating system to protect this database, all right, and have permissions on different hives in the registry and whatnot. Of course, because it's centralized, it is vulnerable, right? If your registry is taken down, then you basically cannot even boot into the operating system, right? If you erase your registry, of course, the files are also protected. It's not, very easy to erase the registry, but there have been, some viruses that were actually targeting registries. So, and without registry, their system is largely inoperable. So Unix systems from the very onset, from the early 70s, they use a different idea. So they store all configuration information as files, and there is a central location to avoid all the conflicts and whatnot, and that central location is etc. Yeah, delete system32 is another way to render your Windows installation non-functional. Okay, so yeah, I don't think it will allow you, just even if you're working as an admin, I don't think you can remove system32, the entire thing. I think some parts of what's inside system32, I think in particular drivers, that there is some additional level of protection. Yeah, but if you get rid of system32, then yeah, it's not going to be good. All right, so here are other startup files for the shells. So in particular, since most likely most of you are going to be using Bash, so Bash profile is their individual configuration. So it's a user profile with all the settings for a particular user. So if you want, let's say, to add another directory to your path, you are likely to do this in your own profile. So you would edit this file. So it's a text file, so you can just edit it with VI or whatever your favorite text editor is. Bash RC is their script, and Bash logout is basically the script that contains commands that you want to be executed when you log out from the system. All right, and wildcards. So we already saw this star wildcard. So they are also called meta characters, and specifically for file name abbreviations, there are two wildcards, the star and the question mark. And when you type your command, then those characters, the star and the question mark, are treated in a special way. They are expanded into something, and we have already seen that star is expanded into basically all their file names and directory names. All right, and so star matches anything, and yeah, if you give shell star by itself, we have seen echo star. Star is replaced with a list of all file names and directories in the current directory, and of course you can use it. So it's in a sense like a regular expression. Have you folks heard of or used regexes or regular expressions before? Nightmare. No. Okay. Well, I actually think that they're super cool, right? So if you ever come across regexes, they are extremely powerful, right? So when you when yeah, fox moment, exactly. So when you come across them, please practice them. They are very convenient. They allow you to write a lot less code if you can come up with a solution that just involves a search or search and replace with a regular expression. And so regular expressions, they actually implement a particular grammar, and so they have limited power, right? So they cannot be solved they cannot be used to solve any problem. So they have limited power, but still they're useful. And the added benefit of if you make yourself acquainted with the regular expressions now and what you can do with them and what their limitations are is when you take programming languages and you learn about all the grammars that stand behind those languages, and regular expression is just a language, then you will be a lot more comfortable understanding that material because you would already know by then what regular expressions are and how you use them and they're why they're useful. Canadian? No, I don't think I said Canadian. I was talking about proglang and regular expressions and grammars. Yeah, well, regexes are scary at first, but you know, give them a try. Open your heart to regexes, and hopefully you won't regret it. All right, so A star B is actually a type of regular expression in a sense, right? Because the star stands for not just the star character, but it has a special meaning. Yeah, so let's see what we can actually do with regex with star. So let me go back to my home directory, and if I do ls d star, oops. Oh, I want to do of course echo d star, right? It gives me all names, all files and directories that start with a capital D and then have any number of any other characters. All right. So if I do something like D O star, then gives me something that has DO and then any other characters. Right. I can do um, D star P, and it will give me just desktop because that's the only thing that matches this expression, this expression. And I can also use a question mark that represents one single character, any character but one. Star represents any number of any characters. Question mark, one character, one any character. So if I have D and then O and then question mark and then what I want. Let's do this. Question mark star S. You see that Well, that's not particularly meaningful. I am trying to do this. Question mark O star S, right? So it has to start with I don't care which character, but only one character, so that the second character is O, lowercase o, and then any number of any other characters, and then end with an S. Okay. So that's another wildcard character question mark. And yeah, we've already done this. So please practice with the star and question mark. They are ubiquitous, all right? They're used anywhere and everywhere. So you're gonna know this. All right, and to that matter, they're not specific to Unix. In Windows, they actually made their way through an early operating system, DOS, which was, actually Microsoft's. Some people say that they just stole it. They just kind of, bought their system and then changed the name and sold it under, and we're selling it under MS DOS, right? So it was a PC DOS system, where PC DOS was actually based on an early Unix-based operating systems, and that's why many commands are, the same. If you look even at modern Windows, right, you can do CD. All right, it's the same command, and the star and question mark um, are are the same. So you can use question mark and star on Windows systems as well if you're doing if you're using commands in PowerShell or in the command prompt. All right. Their shell can actually attach things other than your standard keyboard and standard input. So it can be a file, or it can be a pipe. And a file is something that you might have noticed if you looked at their submitted output for your homework 1 auto grading. You would have noticed those funny characters, less than, greater than. They are used in the context of running programs in a shell. They're used for redirection, and the reason for that is pretty obvious, right? We don't have a person sitting, inside the submitted server who would, manually type stuff on the keyboard when a student submits their homework. So we have to automate it. So we have to basically have a way of telling um, the shell, hey, here's the program that expects the user, a human user, to type stuff from the keyboard, but we don't have a human, but here's the file that contains the stuff as if it was typed by a user. So please feed that file to their stdin for that program so that it runs correctly. Okay, and pipe is a way to redirect output from one program to another. And piping is extremely powerful, and it's widely used in Linux, Unix operating systems. So that's also something that you definitely have to know and have to use. It's a time saver. So to redirect the output from a file, you just put a greater sign and the name of the file, like that. So if we want ls to direct its output to a file instead of the screen, we just do this. Let's try it. ls out, and spaces are optional. It's not really required. All right, and now we can look at that file, right? So we see that the file has in fact been created. Note that when we redirect, it's redirecting. So it means that their output is no longer shown on their default device, default channel, which is our screen. It is redirected to their file, and it's not shown on the screen. So if you want to show it on the screen, you have to output the file separately, or you can use a trick that is there is a T command in Linux. Okay, so and it reads from standard input and writes to standard out and files. So it serves as an adapter, right? So it serves as a T, right? If you're familiar with their with the plumbing terminology, then you know what a T is, right? It's it's this piece of pipe, so to speak, with three ends. All right. And it can be used very conveniently if you want to direct output, not just to the file, but also have it output on the screen. So let me start with this. We will do our ls, and then I will do pipeline, right? Because we want to sort of pipe the output of ls into the T, and the T will print that output and also capture it in this text file, right? So you see that now everything is printed on their screen, and in addition, the file output has been created. So if you want to have both, then you can use this T. It's pretty convenient. And I will get back to the example that I have here with this weird looking thing 2 greater ampersand 1. I will explain what it means. It is also pretty handy. All right, so we are back here. So this is greater than, and correspondingly, if you want to redirect std in, you use the less than. So if this program expects expects you to list values and from the keyboard, to enter values from the keyboard, and you want to instead give those values from the file. That's how you do it, right? So sort, and then you provide values from this nums file to the sort program, right? Sort is a program. 5, 8, 0, 2. Here's an example, right? So I'm just entering values. Sort is taking them. How does it know that I'm done? Well, I press Control D. I just press Control D, and that's how sort understood that the stream was closed, and it printed the values that I entered sorted, right? So if I want to capture this, oops, and right, so let's say those are the numbers that I want, and if I want to redirect them, I can do, I can save them in a file, okay, and then I can do sort, then nums, right, and of course there's only one line, so yeah, I didn't do a good job, so I probably want to do. Oops. Why is it not switching to their one? And now let me see if I have my nums correct, and then I can do sort nums. All right. Yeah, it's very convenient, especially when you automate your testing. So on the Submiti forum, I was answering one of the posts, and I wanted to give an example of how you can actually automate your testing a lot by using scripts, right? So please write scripts, right? Your shell scripts to help you automate stuff. When you're testing your programs, do not keep typing the same stuff over and over again. You're just wasting your time. Save the output, save the input into a file, and then feed that file to your program. and then do not repeatedly type the same commands over and over again. Gather everything in a shell script, and then just invoke that script. Interesting question. Again, would be a good question for Q&A. Is a sort nums the same as nums sort? So in this syntax, the first one is the command. Okay, and then the second one is the file that I'm using to redirect to stdin. That's why there are arrows pointing towards sort. With this syntax, nums would be interpreted as a command, and the output of that command would be captured in the file called sort. The problem, of course, is there is no command called nums, right? But if I use a command that does exist, I can totally redirect it, to the sort. But yeah, it's not symmetrical. So if you have sort nums, you cannot do nums sort. It's not going to be the same thing. Could you also pipe the output from echo into sort? Yes, you could. You can you can pipe anything you want, except for if you echo there like that, there will be no new line characters. So sort would consider this whole thing as one line, which is exactly what happened to me when I tried this. Right? It's not going to look at it as different numbers, right? It's going to look at that as a single string, right? Because those sort doesn't really work with numbers. It works with it sorts strings, right? So here it takes this whole string as one element. All right. And then, of course, you can do both. All right. So that would be the next logical question. Okay, can I do both? Yeah, you can totally do both. So if your program expects input from stdin and you want to feed that input from the file, and if your program prints something to std out and you want to capture it in the file, that's the way to do it, right? So you can certainly do that. And yeah, by the way, there is a tr or translate command, which is pretty neat. All right, so just make mental notes about all those commands. But there's a gazillion of them, so of course I don't expect you, to know all of them or even the majority of them. But take mental notes of some commands that you think might be convenient, right? Because you won't believe, if you haven't dealt with Unix Linux systems before, you won't believe the flexibility that all those commands, all those different commands, and all the different stuff you can do with just command line tools in Unix. It's not at all like Windows, right? There's a huge number of very powerful commands in Unix systems, right? So to give you just one more example, there is a text a command line editor, right? So and I just cannot resist the temptation to mention it, right? So here is. Do I not have it installed? No, not gedit. No, gedit is just a text editor. Yeah, that's not what I meant. I was so yeah. I need to then refresh my memory. So it's a command line text editor. That is very not Vim, not Nano. No, it's not. It's a stream text editor, and I'm just blanking on the name at the moment. Said, yeah, stream editor, not GED, SED, of course. And someone suggests, yeah, thank you. That's the one, right? So it is actually a command line text editor. If you've never if you've never worked with Linux, Unix before, I'm sure you haven't seen such a thing, right? But it's extremely powerful because you can use it in scripts, right? So you can, and with redirection and piping, there's just really tons of cool stuff that you can do with regexes as well. So you better know what you can see that SAD, this editor, uses can use regular expressions as well. So it's extremely powerful. So for automation, it's invaluable. So just wanted to mention that name, and of course. I didn't get it right from the first attempt, but anyhow, SED. That's what I wanted to uh, to mention at least. I wish we had more time, to have fun with all that stuff, but we don't. We have to move on actually to other topics, right? So yeah. So here's our. What happens if we redirect on GCC? It would just work the same way. So Meteor SF sharp 2500 and what do we have here? We have lec02, so GCC lec02, and then you can redirect to log.txt. Oops. Yeah, and of course it doesn't compile without -lm. Well, I mean, it does compile, it doesn't link without -lm. So here it is, right? And if you look at log.txt, you see it's exactly 0 bytes because there was no output, right? Because their compilation was successful. If it wasn't successful, let's see what happens. All right, so let's see what we have in log.txt, and it is still 0 bytes. Why? What the hell is going on? Can someone tell me? Any thoughts? Exactly. It's because we had an error and it was printed to std error. And if you want to redirect std error, then you have to redirect the proper file handle. Okay, so those special files in C, they have their designated magic numbers for their file handles. So if you redirect with just greater than, it by default it redirects std out. If you want to redirect std error, the file handle for std error is 2. So you have to basically say, hey, I'm redirecting 2 to log.txt, right? So you can even do something like that. Log. Oops. Duh. Right? And here we are, right? So log std is std out, nothing got printed, and log error logged my std error. So you can you can redirect both std error and std out to different files if you want. And speaking of this, let's try this thing, right? So this thing redirects 2 to 1. So it basically means that we want to join std in and std error into a single stream. So we are redirecting std error into std out. So basically we are combining the output of these two files into one, and then it gets printed. But we could, of course, combine this with our t command like that to make sure that this joint output is printed on their terminal and captured in the file. So, and now I can look at output.txt. It has this file that contains both std in and std out. Okay, so this thing you might want to remember this, right? It's very common, just basically to append this to every command that you write, and that ensures that whatever, so std in and std out are both going to be printed, and then they both going to be captured in this file. So it's great for keeping log of, like, your debugging sessions or whatever you're doing, right? So that you later can, keep track of, how a particular command was run, what it produced as the output. Okay, okay, yeah, we have a pop quiz. Did I open it? Probably not. Here it is, right? Is that the one? Let me double check. Oops. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and our panelists are doing great. So we have 11 questions asked and 11 answers provided. Awesome. It looks like this idea is working. I think, I would hope. Yeah, I'm very enthusiastic. Okay, okay. Is Z for error? I'm not sure. I'm seeing the context for this. Does all output include both standard output and error? Yes, if you join these two, right? So this two stands for, and let me zoom in, make sure that you can see it, right? So this two stands for standard error, and we are redirecting to std out. This &1 stands for standard out. So here we are kind of joining them together, and then we send through the pipe, we send it to the input of T command, and T command prints whatever it receives as the input. It prints it to std out, and then also saves it to the file. So there's no redirection required here, because that's the way T works. T just takes an argument, which is the name of the file. Yeah, and this is actually an important observation here, that some commands would print to std out, and that's it, right? And if that is the case, you need to use redirection, right? You need to redirect that std out with a greater sign to whatever file you want. If the command is different, if the command says, well, I'm writing my output to the file, and let's say it requires you to specify that file, the name of the file, as an argument, the command line argument, then you don't need redirection. You just specify the name of the file. Like, this is exactly like this T command works, right? With a.out, for example, right? A.out does not is not written to write any output files. So it would just did I not build it? So a.out just prints their output on their std in. So if I do something like out.txt, let's say, it's not going to create out.txt, right? There's no such file because my program does not expect a command line arguments. Even if I give it one, it's not doing anything with it. Okay, so that's why if I want whatever my program prints to redirect it to some file, I have to do it with a redirection like that, and then I would have this out file, and if I cat it, I would be able to see what was captured. Okay. What all output means in the pop quiz? Oh, okay, got it. Let me see what the wording exactly is. Yeah, it means all output to std in. Does it make sense? Does that answer your question? Yes. So when it says all output means all output from std in, from std out. Sorry, I misspoke. Yeah, std out. So it's not. Yeah, we're not concerned about std error here. We're just trying to find if this command would put all std output from std out into this file. All right, that's the quiz, and well, not the quiz, a poll, a mini poll. All right, and yeah, we just talked about this to thing, right? That's the way to redirect standard error to to somewhere. Okay, and we talked about this ampersand, right? So it is used to combine two outputs into one, right? So if we want to redirect std error and std out to the same output file, we use this ampersand. All right, and then pipes. Pipe, we have already seen an example, right? So pipe looks like a vertical bar, and it really looks like this, like a piece of pipe. So whatever one program outputs to std out, if we want to redirect it to std in of another program and thus chain the execution of programs, we can do this with a pipe. And pipe looks like a vertical bar between two commands. For example, yeah, that's a good one. So we do ls and then sort, and we sorted our files and directory names lexicographically, right? So hopefully you remember this, right? Lexicographic from CS1, I think. Um, that's when this term first appears, right? So which is basically alphabetically, but also it has rules for how different how the same letter in different case is handled, right? So capital A versus lowercase a, and how numbers are. Yeah, CS1 throwbacks, exactly, right? So yeah, it's a scary word, but not such a scary concept. So and it will pop up in our course, this word lexicographically a few times. So don't be scared. All right, and of course you can combine everything that we discussed. You can combine piping with redirection. So here we sort their names of directories and files that ls provides, and then we save that in sorted ls text file. Okay, so that's that. Shell variables, that's the next exciting thing. So it turns out that shells, you can define variables, and they can be very handy, both in terms of keeping track of some state, like keeping track of the directories where you want shell to search for commands that you are trying to run, external commands, and shells are invaluable if you're writing scripts, if you're writing shell scripts. As one of the examples, you can see the shell script that I put on the Submiti forum when I was answering one of their students about something, and I wrote that script that actually has a for loop, and then a variable goes through their values in their array of values. And let me actually find that that post. Is that one? Yeah, so that's the one, right? You see how you can automate testing of your program, right? Instead of me running my program with slightly varying flags, I put all the different flags that I want to test with in an array, and then I have a variable I that goes through all elements of the array, and then I compile my code with their flag -std that takes their value from that variable, right? So I test how, and this std stands for the standard. So I'm trying how my code would compile if I tell GCC to use different standards of the C language. Okay, so I compile and run, and I compile and run, and I do this, quite a few number of times for all the different C standards that my GCC supports, at least on my machine. So that list may vary slightly, but it is more or less the same. All right. So please use scripts. Save your time. It's worth it. Spending maybe an hour learning some of their scripts syntax. How to declare an array or how to write a for loop. And the syntax is going to be, as you can see, the syntax is very different from the C or any other language that you know. It's actually a very ancient syntax. It predates most of their, programming languages that you're likely familiar with. It's ancient, so treat it with respect, right? It's probably 50, 60 years old. Here spend if it takes 1 hour, spend that hour writing that script, but then you will just call that script like that, and it will just do everything that you coded in that script, instead of just constantly typing this command and then changing some flags and then doing it over again, or trying to run your code with different command line arguments as you're testing. Automate stuff. It's going to be a huge time saver. Is this basic level? I don't know. How do you define basic? I think it's doable. If that's what you're asking, I think it's actually in your own interest to do that. Well, all of you survived data structures. So do I think data structures is an easy class? No, and all of you survived it, right? So then I'm sure you can handle shell scripting, right? It's no more complicated, right? Than what you learned in data structures. It's different. It's different syntax, right? And syntax sometimes feels awkward, but it is worth it. I think it is primarily it's first of all it's in your own interest. All right, so those are variables in shell scripts, but you can also use variables in shell outside of the scripts. So just assigning values, and those would typically be called environment variables. That's what they are typically called in the Windows world. In Unix world, they're just typically referred as shell variables. So there's a number of there's a number of variables that are defined, and you can just use them. So, for example, pwd for the current directory. So note, it's not the command; it's all uppercase. So that's the difference. It might be confusing. So, for example, we know there's a command pwd. We've used it. If we type pwd, it's not going to work. There's no such command because pwd is a variable. What can we do with a variable? We can print it. So if we want to print it, we just put echo $sign to indicate that it's a variable, and here we are, right? And there is a number of other variables. Some of them are listed on this slide. There are of course a lot more. So for example, term. That's an interesting one, right? Term, and I'm using this terminal configuration, all right? Called xterm with color coding for different things, all right? That's why it's a 256 color thing. Okay, and moving on, right? We only have a few minutes left. Oh, well. All right, so we already talked about displaying shell variables. You can also use these variables anywhere in the command line. So just remember to keep that $sign to indicate that it's a variable, and you can set variables by just using the syntax of name of the variable equals and then whatever you want this variable to be equal to. So for example, if I do, I don't know, comporg is cool, and don't you dare to disagree. Hit it. Kidding, of course. All right. So if we do this, oh wow, comporg is not found. Command is not found. So it turns out that you have to look at some of your habits. For example, for me, it's and reconsider those habits. For me, it's quite natural to put spaces around an equals. Okay, comporg not found. Yeah, yeah, well, we shall see shortly that it will be found, right? With the command line tools, it is treated as comporg command with two arguments, equals and cool. And comporg command indeed is not found. So you want to make sure that there are no extra spaces, because they trip their parser for their shell parser that parses your command, right? So if we do it like that, it works, right? So we just set this variable comporg to this value, and we can then check if indeed this value, this variable exists. Yeah, don't mess, don't mess around with your path, right? Because it may screw you up. Not permanently. You just have to, log out and log in. All right. If you just screwed up your own path in the profile, but yeah. All right. What do we do if we want to print all variables that are defined in our current shell? Well, there is a print env command that prints all environment variables. And here we are, and our comporg should be somewheres here. But it's a lot of stuff. How do we find comporg here in this long list of stuff? Sort, close. We can use another very powerful command called grep. Okay, so grep finds stuff in their input stream, right? So that's why we need a pipe. So that printf sends its output to grep, and with grep we want to find if there's comporg. I don't see it defined, and the reason for that is that we actually didn't add this variable to be an environment variable, right? So that's why it's not found, but we can find some other variable, for example, username, right? You can see that, well, I just typed user as my search word. So there are two environment variables that have user in the name of the variable, username and user. All right, someone wants to try echo $. Well, it kind of works, right? But probably not in the way you thought it would. All right, set is the command that we can also use to set values. If we issue set command with no attributes, it will, well, it actually is giving you this script that sets command line, that sets in variables, that set environment variables, right? On some systems, it is actually going to give you a list of variables that is currently set. So something similar to what we've accomplished with printf. Okay, and so the path is their environment variable that holds a list of directories where shell will be searching for the command that you asked it to run. So when you type the name of the command, press enter. The shell first checks if it's a built-in command or not. If it's not, it will search for all the directories in the path environment variable. It will search in the exact order that those directories are listed under path. So if we do printf path, here's my path. So the first directory would be this. Note that directories are separated with a colon. right? Not semicolon, not comma, but a colon. So this is a specific Linux thing. If you're familiar with environment variables on Windows, you know that on Windows there is a similar concept of the path, but there the separator between directories is a semicolon. On Unix systems, it is a colon. Okay, that's path, and yeah, we just looked at the path on my system. We talked about their colon. You can, of course, add your stuff to Bash by changing either Bash profile or Bash RC, the startup script, and yeah, well, let's do this pop quiz so that we bring the total number of quizzes for this lecture to 6. And yeah, I will, of course, we are out of time, but I will keep it open, for a couple of hours, maybe until the end of the day, so that even if you have another class to do, you still have some time to answer this last poll. And yeah, so 6 polls today. I think that's a record, and we had 8 before, so total 14 polls. So we are almost at the point where some people will be earning an extra late day to use towards their homework assignments, any homework assignments. All right, so let me just say, briefly, 30 seconds about this pop quiz. And this might require on your part some thinking. So it is known that dot, the current directory, is not included in the path, and we could have seen it when we printed the path. So the question is why? And even if you type the command, then it will not be searched for in the current directory. If you want to run something from the current directory, you have to do, this dot slash, right, as we have seen before, right? If I just do a dot out, it's not found. Why? Why not include the current directory as the default search location when we are trying to find the command to run, the command that matches the command that the user wants to run? Okay, so try to guess what the correct reason would be. And with that, let me stop here. And we have 12 questions asked and answered. Thank you, our panelists, so much. It was great help. And thank you, everyone who attended this lecture today. Hopefully to see you on Tuesday. And enjoy your weekend and have a great day. Thank you so much, folks.